Good evening, my friends. This is Paul, and today I'm going to be reviewing Mario & Luigi Bowser's Inside Story for the 3DS. Now, I haven't completed Bowser Jr.'s Journey yet, so you can just ignore the plus Bowser Jr.'s Journey on the title screen, because I beat the main game. Bowser Jr.'s Journey is turning out to be kind of a bore in the gameplay department, so we'll see how I feel about that. But for now, in case anyone can only get the regular DS version, or if they want to see if this game is still worth a purchase if they don't like Bowser Jr.'s Journey, that's my job. So first off, this game, for those of you that don't know, the main premise of the story is that there's this disease going around the Mushroom Kingdom known as the Blorbs, which makes everyone turn into these giant, round, boulder-shaped objects. And so Peach holds a conference at her castle, and Bowser, jealous that he wasn't invited, gets kicked out by the Mario Brothers and Peach. Then he finds a shady customer that gives him a mushroom that gives him inhalation abilities. So then Bowser uses that to suck everyone in the conference into his belly, but then conveniently he forgets that it happens. And so when he wakes up, he finds that Fawful, the main villain from Superstar Saga, has taken over his castle. So his mission is that he wants to take back his castle, whereas Mario and Luigi are trying to get themselves and everyone else outside of Bowser. So most of the game involves you switching control between the brothers and Bowser. When the brothers are inside Bowser's body, most of the action takes place in classic side-scrolling format, with the A button using Mario's actions and the B button for Luigi. Their gameplay sections don't actually change all that much from other Mario & Luigi RPGs. The battles, their abilities, are pretty much unchanged, although because I've never reviewed a Mario & Luigi game yet, I'm just going to briefly go over some of the gameplay aspects. So for starters, you can choose to make one jump or the other jump, and you can press the Y button to make both of them jump at the same time. You can also press the R button to switch the actions they're able to do, like whether you want them to swing their hammers or jump, and eventually you learn other abilities where the brothers work together to get various bro moves accomplished. In battle, again, you select Mario's actions with the A button and Luigi's with the B button, and like in the Paper Mario series, the battles are turn-based, and you can press the corresponding button at the correct time to do an action command, which makes the attack do more damage. During the enemy's turn, rather than just pressing a block button at the right time, you actually can choose to either jump or use Mario and Luigi's hammer, depending on the enemy's attack pattern, and you can actively either avoid the attack entirely or counterattack if you have the right timing. Most of the enemies telegraph their attacks, so a lot of times it's really easy to say, okay, if the enemy twitches their left eye, that means they're going to attack Luigi, so I better get Luigi's hammer out so that I can bop them. Sometimes the enemies will target both brothers, sometimes they won't target them at all, and if you do try to counterattack, that'll be bad. And that, in and of itself, is okay, but if that were the entire game, I probably wouldn't have beaten it. Now, Bowser is where it's at. This is legitimately what a Mario game would be like if Bowser were the main character. I mean, his name is in the subtitle of the game, Bowser's Inside Story. When you play as Bowser in the Mushroom Kingdom, his segments are from a top-down perspective, like the rest of the games. And it seems like the game custom fits itself to fit the fact that Bowser is in this. From the blocks that Mario and Luigi would normally jump up to hit, now being big enough for Bowser to just punch them from the ground, to not being able to jump, so everything has to accommodate for that, aka kind of like Captain Toad. I wonder if this was actually a precursor to that. That'd be curious. And the battles are also done with Bowser's fighting style in mind. Bowser can punch enemies, breathe fire to damage all of the enemies, but it might not cause as much damage to, say, metallic or stone enemies, as well as occasionally he'll have bits where he can vacuum stuff in the environment, from coins from a treasure chest to enemies that are flying around on the top screen, and sometimes the stuff that he inhales will continue the battle inside his belly, where Mario and Luigi will have to continue the fight. This allows for all three characters to gain experience at times. Doing so will increase their statistics in typical RPG style. You have your health points, attack points. I'm not going to bore you with all of them, But suffice to say that every time a character gets a level up, you have the opportunity to select another stat that you'd like to personally increase more than the game already does, and you can stop a roulette wheel to determine, okay, am I going to increase this by 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Eventually, you can also increase your rank, which gives you other upgrading bonuses. And even so, later in the game, you can also grind to find even more ways to upgrade your statistics. So in a manner of speaking, you can grind a lot to make the game easier, or you can set your own difficulty, as the regular DS version doesn't have a difficulty mode, but the 3DS version does. There's an easy mode, which makes the battles go by a lot quicker. It slightly beefs up your character's stats and also increases the effectiveness of the items. It also causes colored circles to appear beneath Mario and Luigi to determine when they should dodge specifically instead of just guessing, because sometimes the battles can be rather unintuitive. But most of the time they're a lot of fun, especially when Bowser gets into the battle. It never gets old when he goes, "Showtime!" to start out a battle. The music is much more menacing than the happy-go-lucky Mario and Luigi music, and the enemies seemed custom fit to take advantage of Bowser's abilities to punch, breathe fire, and then for counterattacking, punching, and getting into his shell to block attacks coming from the top. The top screen is used to display information that might not have fit on the dominant bottom screen, like enemies firing from above you and such like that. This isn't really used to its full potential most of the time, but I find that the dual screen nature really lends itself well during exploration and the giant Bowser battles. During exploration, the top screen can be used to display additional information like a map. Sometimes the map will even tell you if there's a side quest in the area or where there are save blocks. Most of the time it's pretty handy, although occasionally there are blurry bits of the map that might make it confusing as to whether or not a certain area should be explored or not. At one point, just to walk through a door, I had to go on the internet because the map poorly colored in a certain area of the map. And I'm pretty sure if those of you who have actually beat the game are listening to this, you're like, yeah, Paul, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes, DS owners, it has not been corrected in the slightest for this 3DS remake. Although I never actually played the DS version, so I'm treating this as its own game, and if any of you want to tell me the differences in the comment section, I'd be happy to hear them. Now, moving on to the giant Bowser battles. During particularly significant moments of the story, Bowser can grow to ginormous size, and you'll turn the 3DS sideways so that the top screen is facing to your left. I heard this was the other way around in the DS version. Don't ask me why that's the case. Probably so that dominant righties could focus on Bowser's moves more. You'll now use the touchscreen for literally everything in this mode, from spinning the stylus in a circular motion to wind up Bowser's fist for a finishing move, to tapping the screen at just the right time to use Bowser's fire breath. And these are truly incredible spectacles of these gigantic battles that truly show off the horizontal nature of the 3DS when it's held sideways. These are also some of the most well-looking 3DS exclusive cutscenes I have ever seen. Hyrule Warriors Legends probably is the best 3DS cutscenes ever, but man, these really push the graphics to their limit, especially how Bowser looks in 3D. Now, the 3DS doesn't support stereoscopic 3D, but I think it's pretty obvious why that isn't the case. Because the dual screens are used too much, it would probably be a strain on the eyes for the average player. Either way, the game goes from good to great when Bowser is playable, but it's especially enjoyable when Bowser talks. This is a Mario and Luigi RPG, so naturally there are going to be plenty of dialogue-heavy moments. And while the sections with Mario and Luigi in it are okay, they're phenomenal with Bowser. If you've ever played Paper Mario 2 and loved all the scenes with him in it, but were worried that they were a bit too short, that's the exact opposite. Bowser will sometimes have, campaigns of his own that'll take a couple of hours to complete. He always has a temper, but yet he also has a slight arrogant side. And usually, since most of the people in this game are kind of idiotic compared to Bowser, the interactions are always amusing, except I did get a little bit tired of exactly how much comic mischief there was directed at Bowser. I mean, I know he's supposed to be like a villain in the Mario and Luigi series, but he's just trying to take back his castle in this game. And a lot of times he doesn't even do that bad of stuff. I mean, unless you count burning down trees and shooting fireballs at Goombas to make them more powerful, but they also volunteered for that, so makes me question how evil they're making Bowser out to be. Suffice to say that there are moments where Bowser gets electrocuted, burned, soaked, you name it, and that's the cue for Mario and Luigi to find some way to fix it, through a timing-based minigame or from hitting nerves inside his body, etc. The ways in which the two of them, or three of them in this case, work together is absolutely magnificent. There are even moments where you'll have to frequently switch between them. Like, say, an early example is when Bowser finds a water fountain, and as he's getting a drink, that fills up his body with water so that Mario and Luigi can swim. But if Bowser decides to take a break from drinking, then that'll drain the water, so they have to use a lot of buoyancy type of puzzles. This is a weird part of the game for me, because while Mario and Luigi flutz around like they would do in a standard side-scrolling Mario game in the overworld, once they encounter a battle underwater, they just treat it like normal physics. I mean, why can't all video games do that? Bowser's Inside Story also has a few odd pacing and explanation choices. It's hard to explain without video footage, but suffice to say there would be times where I just thought the enemy encounter rate was just very absurd. Now granted, you can avoid most of the enemy encounters, but considering Bowser's bulk, that's a lot easier said than done, especially when you're going through returning areas and you just want to complete the side quests. In addition to that, I thought some of the battles took way too long, especially when, again, I'm just trying to backtrack, and the enemies give you less and less experience the more you level up, so sometimes it's counterproductive for you to keep battling. I also found that every now and then the game would have massive difficulty spikes that just felt like they came out of nowhere. And while you could turn on easy mode, it sort of felt like then the game became too easy if you did that. There were moves where like I wouldn't even know how to dodge them and I'd get one hit KO'd, or the game wouldn't read my inputs, and that felt kind of annoying because I didn't think the 3DS was the kind of system that would have input lag. But alas, there were more than a few moments, especially near the end of the game, where I would try to slide the stylus a certain way or press the button at a certain time, and the game just would not read what I wanted to do, with me ending up being more frustrated at what the game wouldn't allow than my own lack of skill. Now, this may not be a problem for every gamer, maybe I'm just rusty with my touchscreen, but the thing is, it was inconsistent. There were times when the stylus worked great, and there were other times when it didn't, and I wish the game would have more of like a stylus sensitivity option without me having to exit the game and go into my 3DS menu. With a game that treats the 3DS's special features with so much love and care, you'd think maybe they would have thought more about this. Now, a couple of minor mechanical changes. There's also the badge system when you're playing as Mario and Luigi, which the meter at the bottom of the screen fills up when they successfully do action commands. And then there are little heart icons that appear on the right side of the touchscreen. You can tap one of those to heal 20% of the brothers' health. Unfortunately, that's about the extent of the badges that I got from the game. I never learned how to get any other combinations besides healing, even though the game told me, try mixing and matching various combinations of badges. Yeah, I would love to if I knew where to get some. Now, don't get me wrong, Bowser's Inside Story has a ton of side quests. There's even a gauntlet challenge mode if you want to take on greater challenges than the main game. And this is one of those few games that actively rewards you and encourages you to go out of your way to do side quests. Most of them, in fact, are so easy to complete that a lot of them I got just by proceeding through the main game naturally. The rewards are absolutely amazing and can definitely be a game breaker in the best way possible during some of the tougher battles, as they can really buff up your stats. Now, when the game gets into backtracking territory, that's when things can get really monotonous. I'm really not a huge fan of moments when the game puts you into Metroidvania-style situations, but then again, maybe that's just me. Maybe some of you like that. I don't. Personally, when I'm playing a Mario RPG, especially a Superstar Saga type one, I'd prefer to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible with as little grinding as possible. Mario, Luigi, and Bowser also have various equipment and items that they can use. Most of the time you use items in battle, but you can also heal yourself outside of battle if you want to be really cheap. I'll explain ways to be very, very cheap later when I start talking about 3DS improvements. You can equip one of each type of equipment. Like I think there's like overalls, gloves, and shoes, and then for Bowser it's like a shell, a wristband, and a ring, something like that. Because there are differences. There's like fangs and claws and stuff like that, and they usually give you a buff while also downgrading something. So you may get a shell that gives Bowser a lot of defense while at the same time decreasing his attack. And so mixing and matching, knowing when to sell these items at the stores, and also knowing, okay, this just doesn't suit my playstyle. With that in mind, as well as the options for leveling up, Bowser's Inside Story gives you plenty of ways to play the game how you want to. If you want to make the game as hard as heck, just turn off the easy mode or the assistant mode. If you're a newbie to this game, that's where the 3DS features come in. So I don't actually know how much has been done to nerf this and make it more accessible, but I do have a couple of guesses based on just common sense. Amiibo functionality, for example, weren't even heard of in the DS era, so obviously that's a new addition. You can scan the amiibo that are based on characters that actually appear in the game, which are Mario, Luigi, Peach, Bowser, Bowser Jr., Goomba, Koopa Troopa, Boo. I think that's it. That's quite a mouthful there. The game shows you this giant chart and says use one of these amiibos. Now, the cool thing about this is that you can actually use multiple amiibos of the same character to keep getting rewards. For instance, I have several different Mario amiibos, including 2 8-bit Marios, the Mario Odyssey Wedding amiibo, and even Dr. Mario works as a standard Mario amiibo. However, you can only use one of each specific amiibo once in the span of 24 hours. So, you can't use, say, the Wedding Peach amiibo 2 times in a row, but you can, say, use Smash Brothers Peach, Mario Party Peach, and Odyssey Peach in the same day. They get you various amounts of rewards depending on the character. If you scan Bowser, his rewards will mostly be based on healing items that Bowser would use in the main game. Bowser Jr. plus the minion enemies would usually give you stuff that's useful during the Bowser Jr.'s journey, sub-story, which I will get to on another day. Mario, Luigi, and Peach will give you stuff that Mario and Luigi would use. This can also help artificially measure out the game's difficulty, as if you don't like grinding for coins and continuously buying stuff in the shops, you can load up on amiibos pretty easily. Also, the game's graphics and sound have been significantly beefed up. That was actually totally unintentional. I wasn't even thinking that. Fawful just said beef 3 times in the screenshot that I'm showing. It may be reduced by the time I edit this, but whatever. Let's just go with it. The game looks really amazing. Probably not as good as a Switch game, but this is definitely one of the best looking Mario RPGs I have ever seen, especially with the giant Bowser battles. Textures are much more refined than from what I saw in Nintendo Power. The sprites, while they may not be as overly expressive, I still think they get the job done for being super exaggerated in style, especially Bowser. He's still filled with so much expression even with his new model, which a lot of people think it's usually the other way around with Mario and Luigi games. Also, all of the music is done by Yoko Shimomura, who is mostly known for her Kingdom Hearts soundtracks and who composed the original game. All of the music sounds like it probably would have come from a DS, but the extra horsepower of the 3DS makes it sound 10 times better, and in many cases even makes it seem like real instruments are performing the songs. Overall, I found the soundtrack to be good, but not great, as I ended up forgetting most of the tunes after I'd gotten through the game enough, because they didn't really do much to sort of stand out from the crowd. Then again, Mario RPGs never were about the music. They were mostly about the gameplay, which thankfully the game has some amazing sound effects, which they use to magnificent design to help you know when to properly dodge or to use an attack. A lot of times, even though I never ended up doing this, I wanted to do a challenge run ride try to do an action command blindfolded because the sound effects did a good job of saying, okay, I just heard the jingle, so I should make Mario jump at this point. Overall, the story ends up being a lot less predictable than you'd think. When I first read about this in Nintendo Power, I was pretty sure that after the first 20-30 minutes of the game, I was going to see a variation of the same style the whole time. But without trying to spoil too much, let's just say things don't stay the same forever. Eventually there will be some really incredible twists that'll force you to approach the game in a very different way. And these are much appreciated diversions so that the game doesn't feel samey. It actually doesn't have too much repetition. Every now and then Mario and Luigi will have to return to the same room of Bowser's belly to stop, say, a chest infection for the umpteenth time. Thankfully, the 3DS version lets you skip most of these by holding down the R button, and in some cases there's a skip button on the touchscreen that lets you skip entire movies if, say, this is your second time playing, or if you played it on the DS and you want to get it over with. This overall is one of the best games I have ever played that's not a mainline Mario game in the Mario series, and I highly recommend buying this if you haven't. I only rented it because I wasn't sure how much I would like it, because I'm not normally a huge fan of the Mario and Luigi series. In fact, this is the first one I finished. But this was the one that kept me interested until the very end. Even with the humongous difficulty spike at the final battle, I still said I want to see this to completion. Mostly because Bowser's just such a lovable protagonist, and I'd love to see him get his own game that, puts him in the forefront and Mario and Luigi are just completely out of the picture, and how much more creative the development team could get. Especially because this is in the era where Nintendo didn't think, well, only putting characters from Super Mario World. We have a lot of unique enemies and characters in this game, as well as returning favorites with a new twist. I especially love how Mario and Luigi will face, body cellified versions of famous enemies. Again, you gotta see it to believe it. But suffice to say, this is a well-controlled, well-handled, mostly well-paced, and well-sounding adventure that I think fans of the original, it's questionable how much they'll like the new changes, but for newbies, I can't recommend this enough. Although from what I've heard, the DS version is still pretty solid, so give that a try even if you do have a 3DS, because you can play it on the original system. With that, thank you very much for watching. Again, hopefully I'll get to Bowser Jr.'s journey, but until then, I hope you found this illuminating on the main story. And until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless, and if you see a shady person trying to sell you a mushroom, don't eat it. Bye.